Alright, so let's say I have this sphere here, and the idea is I want when the game starts, I want this to move. Okay. Roblox has an object I can add in here called a body velocity. Okay. And without touching any of the properties, okay, by default, or actually, okay, this object is actually too heavy. So let me make it smaller. So by default, the body velocity will attempt to move this up on the y-axis 2 studs per second. So the y-axis is the up axis. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I see that actually here that the velocity here says 2. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I change this to 10, it'll go up 10 studs per second, so it's faster. If I put -10, then it will start going down.
I see. Okay.
Okay. So very simple way we can make things move just by changing the velocity properties. We just need to give it a direction in the world. Okay. So if I want it to go on the x-axis, then I would need to indicate I want this to go in the x direction. Okay.
And if you wanted to do like diagonal, that would be like on the X and Z axis,
exactly. Right? So maybe I could do 5 on X and 5 on Z. Okay. And so then, if you look at this, I like how when I change my camera, you can see like the direction your camera's facing. So you can actually see that if we start the game, it's gonna go off in the middle of this diagonal here, right?
Yeah.
So it's going off.
Interesting.
From that diagonal. Okay. 0, 0, 0 of the world. So if I put this at position 0, 0, 0. Okay. This is the center of the world. So okay, and so X goes off from here, Z goes off from here, and Y goes up. So and these arrows also help you to know what the arrows are in.
Oh yeah, which one is the X and Z? Because they both are,
The X is red.
X
The
is red.
Z
Okay.
is blue.
All right.
Y
Okay.
is green. And so then so okay, but what if this is too heavy to move? Okay, so if I try to run, this is not going anywhere. It's just too heavy. So what we can do is change how much force is used to move this, and you can choose the axis of the force. So if I want this to move 20 studs per second up, then I need to give this more force. So I'm just going to add some zeros. Okay, and adding those zeros is enough to move this guy up.
I see. Okay.
Alright, but before it wasn't because I did not have enough force. And I did not need to change the force on here. I could make these 0, okay, because I only wanted to go up. But if I had, let's say, if I wanted it to go up and then to the left of it on the x-axis, that's not going to happen because there's no force on the x-axis. I would have to add some force. And so now it's going because I added some force on the x-axis.
Okay.
Right, so next, what if I want to make something, let's say, move this way, but also spin this way while it's moving, kind of like a Rasen Shuriken. Okay. Well, body velocity does not make things spin; it just makes things move. I'm gonna anchor this, by the way, so it doesn't move it won't move at all. So if I anchor it, remember, anything anchored completely ignores physics at all. Doesn't do any physics. But this part now, okay, I'm gonna add a body velocity to make it move forward. And since I want it to go this way, I'm gonna make it go on the negative x because it's that's the negative x direction.
Yeah.
And then 0 and negative 20. And I'm gonna add body.
Is body gyro means the? I know I heard gyro. Something has to do with spinning, right?
Yes, like a gyroscope. A gyroscope.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Okay.
And how this works is I need to give it a. I need to give this what's called a C-frame. Okay, the C-frame indicates just the axis on which it's going to spin. Okay, we're gonna get more into that word later, C-frame. Okay, but just know that the default C-frame has C-frame is basically like what way is up, what way is forward, what way is like where do you want these arrows to point. But by default, the default C-frame just has the green arrow point upwards for the Y, this red arrow point to the X, and then the by default it just matches this diagram right here. So if I want this to just spin on the Y-axis and nothing else, I'm gonna make this 0, 0, and I'm just gonna add some force on the Y. Okay, and so now this is gonna move this way and also spin. Oh wait.
So wait, why do we have to put the x at 0 when wanting it to spin? Wouldn't you want to put like a number or something so it constantly like spins or something? I'm kind of confused on how like the C-frame kind of works.
Wait, so the body, I want it to spin about the Y-axis. So the
On
body
the
gyro,
Y-axis.
you just tell it how much force should it put on each axis here. But wait, let me see. Y. Let me see something here.
So just to clarify, rotating on the Y-axis basically means you wanted to basically be doing like a 360, right?
Yeah, I want it to spin like this.
Yeah.
Oh wait, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Body gyro, sorry, it does not do what we want it to do. Body gyro forces it to be in a body gyro forces it to be at a target, at a target rotation. What I want to do is give it angular velocity. Alright, so this will I'm gonna give it, I want it to spin 10 studs per second on the y-axis, and I'm gonna give it just large torque, and then if I run, I think I need to add an attachment in here.
So how does the attachment work? You had to put it like,
So
okay.
An attachment is like a, if I go to view and then, an attachment's like this little ball thing. And it's just used to like indicate, or a lot of the physics objects will use it to indicate where should we focus our movement. And so the angular velocity, I just tell it the attachment that I want it to focus on, and then I'm going to tell it relative to attachment 0.
I see. Okay.
All right. And so then if I undo run, okay. So now it's moving forward, and it's rotating on the y-axis. Okay.
And if you increase the number on the y-axis, the faster it's going to spin, right?
Exactly. So instead of 10 studs per second, or I think it's 10 radians, or whatever the unit of rotation is. Yeah, this basically uses whatever we learned in our physics class. But yeah, so now,
Yeah.
Now it's rotating on the y-axis. All right, so so with these two things, okay, we can make any type of projectile movement that we want. So now the question is, like, let's say I play the game. Alright, and I want, when I, for example, maybe press F, I want to shoot a fireball. Okay. So I would then add a script. Okay, I need a script that's going to take input. Okay.
Yeah.
And to add a script that takes input, I'm going to add a local script into the starter player scripts. Okay. I'm going to send you this place file after. Okay, so let me see. So, and then I'm going to define a few things. So I'm going to define what my player is. I'm going to say player is equal to game.players.local player. Okay, so this is the player that is playing locally on the computer at the time, and then this player has a character. So this character is a property of the player. So let's say character equal to player dot character. Okay. Actually, we should put this script in starter character scripts. Either way is fine, but I prefer putting it in here. And then and so then what we want to do is so I might want, okay, the idea here is I want to
do it over or something.
Yeah, create like a sphere that's gonna start, that's gonna be positioned at like my chest.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna get the direction that my chest is facing. Okay, so we're gonna see how we can get the direction that any part is facing, not just my chest, but if I want to know like the direction that one of these arrows is facing, okay, we can definitely get that information. Okay, and then once I get that direction, I'll just feed that direction into the body velocity here. And I only want to do that like maybe when I press F. Okay.
What I'm guessing you're gonna do is somehow get the player's position and then like input those coordinates into the velocity, right?
Yes, or I'm gonna get the position and change the position property of the part. Okay. But then the part, so now the part needs a position to know where it's going to be, but then the body velocity needs a direction. So so that the direction part is where these 6 arrows come in.
Oh, okay. I see.
But the position is going to come from my the chest. The chest is the humanoid root part's position property. Okay.
All right. Okay.
And so in order to get user input, Roblox has an object called user input service, and I can just define that as this user. Okay, so I'm telling the game to get this service. Roblox calls a lot of their objects services, okay, just because they do stuff for us. Okay, but user input service, and I have it here, and then I can say when I want, when I do an input, I want to do something. So the user input service has an event. Let me put input service has an event called user input service dot input began, and I can connect a function to this. I can connect create fireball. Okay, and all this function is going to do is create a fireball. So what I want to do is create a part. Okay. So I'm gonna say part is equal to instance.new part. Okay, so this returns a part in the game, and I want this part to be in workspace. So I'm just gonna say part.parent is equal to workspace. Okay, or game.workspace. Okay. So now, if I were to just run this code right now, okay. Okay, so now anytime I make any input, so notice how anytime I make any input, if I jump, click, okay, it's creating a part. Okay. It's creating a part and putting it into workspace. There's actually so many inputs being made. Yeah. And also it's not a ball. Okay. So there's several things I want to change here. I want to change the shape of it. I only wanted to create a part if I press F, not like when I do anything. What I'm gonna do is this event gives me some inputs. So one input is the input object. So this is the input that triggered it, like either the key touch, or the left click or mouse click or space bar, whatever the input is, all that input is stored in here.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can say if input object dot key code dot name is equal to F, then so now I'll only create a part and put it in workspace if I press F.
Okay.
So I'm moving around, nothing's happening unless I press F.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Okay. So now I want to make this a ball. So I'm going to say part dot shape is equal to enum dot part type dot ball. So this is just an enumerated type, kind of like from Java, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So now if I press F, we now have spheres. Okay, but now I want these spheres to be positioned at my chest. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I want to position this part, okay, at my character's humanoid root part. Okay, so let me actually make a variable here. So I'm going to say humanoid root part is equal to character dot humanoid root part, because the humanoid root part is always a child. Is always a child of the character.
Okay.
And then so now I'm going to say part dot position is equal to humanoid root part dot position. So now if I press F, it's being positioned at my body now. Okay, so we're really close to getting our goal here.
And I'm guessing it's only appearing like behind us because, it's being pushed back because, They're
Yeah, there's
like.
no there's no body velocity making it move. If I
Mm-hmm.
click this, this has no body velocity in it. What I want to do is then add a body velocity, right? And then give it enough force, right, to start moving. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But so now I can create let me create a new body velocity. So I can say local body velocity is equal to instance dot new body velocity, and I want this body velocity to be inside of the part. So and also I want this to have a large max force, so I'm going to say body velocity dot max force is equal to vector 3 dot new, and I need to give it an x, y, and a z. So I'm going to say 0, 100,000. So the force needs to be huge on the y, and then 0.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, I'm going to put this inside. I want to put this inside the part. So I'm going to say body velocity dot parent is going to equal the part. So now if I press F, okay, it starts to rise. Okay, but not in the direction I want. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty. Okay, so I'm guessing you can also change the size of each of the spheres, right?
Yes, I can. The size property also I can change it using a vector 3. So any property that you see has 3 numbers like size, x, y, z, we need to change it using a vector 3. Position, a vector 3. Orientation, okay. All of
Also, I
those.
noticed while you were jumping on the spheres, I noticed some of them were falling down. Is that like they're
It's
also
because
like going down?
oh,
Yeah.
they're going down. Maybe it's because we need to give it more force. So the character's pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So also they were rotating. So because I didn't have an angular velocity in it yet.
Oh, okay.
So now I want this to go in the proper direction. So the body velocity we know has a velocity property, and so I want this velocity to be where the humanoid root part is looking. Okay, so I'm gonna say that body velocity dot velocity is going to equal to humanoid root part dot C frame. So the C frame is all 6 of these arrows. Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
I only am interested in the one that is where the character is looking. Okay, so so by default, okay, the front face I'm gonna grab an image here. So by default, the front face of a part is the negative z. So notice how this is looking in the negative z direction here based off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if I change this to local coordinates, if I rotate this, now this blue represents the negative z here, is now up. Okay, and what was previously up is now positive z. Okay, but this is locally. This is basically the arrows of the part relative to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so but I want to know where this is facing relative to the world. Okay, so I can get that by so this arrow that faces forward is called the look vector, and so I'm gonna say humanoid root part dot C frame dot look vector. body velocity dot velocity is equal to this. Okay. So if I play here, if I'm facing this way, oh, okay. Wait, it's because there's no force on the other axes. So we need to make it just have force on all the axes in general. And then so I press F. It's going in the direction that I'm facing. It's just appearing behind me because of collisions. So I'm gonna go ahead and disable the can collide of this part. So I'm gonna say part dot can collide is gonna be equal to false. Okay. So any property that has a check mark here can either be true or false.
Yeah.
And then I probably want to change the color too. So I'm going to say part dot brick color is equal to brick color dot new and really red.
Oh yeah, can you also add effects as well? Because I know you could like add effects to like some objects and stuff like that. Do you think it also like? All right.
We definitely get into that. I think we have time. So now if I press F, it's moving, but it's going really slow. And it's because the direction of something is always a unit vector of length 1, and so it's basically just going 1 stud per second. And so I want to multiply this unit. So this is a unit vector right here. So I want to multiply it by a magnitude so it goes faster. So I'm going to multiply this by 10. So I press F, shoots faster.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So that was a lot of work here to set up all these properties, okay? But why don't I just set up a sphere with everything done already? So I'm going to call this sphere right here Fireball. Okay, I'm going to put a body velocity in it. Make sure it has the max force on everything.
Oh, so then every time you hit, what do you call F, you just make a copy of that.
Yeah, exactly. We could just duplicate this. Exactly.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So I'm going to make this red. And I'm going to add a fire effect. And so now I just need to make a variable for this. Okay, so I'm going to say fireball is equal to, so this is in workspace, and the workspace is in the game, so I'm going to say game dot workspace dot fireball. And okay, and then what we want to do is every time we press F, I want to clone this. So I'm going to just delete all this. So I'm going to say fireball, or say local new fireball is equal to fireball colon clone. Okay, so every object has a function called clone, and this returns it returns the duplicated object into here. And so, but again, I still have to parent it. It does not have a parent, so I need to say that the or before I parent it, it has a body velocity, and I still need to set that. So I'm gonna say new fireball dot body velocity dot velocity is going to be equal to humanoid root part dot cframe dot look vector times 10. and then
You,
yeah,
you
that's
still
it.
there? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. New fireball dot parent is gonna equal game dot workspace. Okay. Yeah, that's it. So now I press F. What? Oh, I never positioned it. So I'm gonna say new fireball dot position. Oh, and it's anchored too. I don't want this to be anchored. Usually we put we can put oh wait, actually we'll just leave this here for now. So I'm just gonna leave that unanchored and turn yeah. Actually, I'll just leave that anchored and just turn those properties off in the code. So it's a new fireball dot anchored. Oh, is going to be equal to false, and then new fireball dot can collide is going to be equal to false, and then new fireball dot position is going to equal humanoid root parts dot position. So now if I press F,
interesting.
Okay, it just duplicates this fireball, positions it at my chest, and then it goes forward.
That's cool.
Alright, and so that is the fundamentals of projectiles. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is making it do damage. Okay, so let's say when a fireball hits the dummy, I want it to do damage. Okay, but I don't want it when it hits me to do damage. I don't want it like if it touches me to do damage. Okay. So I need to set up an event for when this fireball is touched. Okay, so I can do that right inside of this if statement here. Okay, so I can say new fireball dot touched. Okay.
Wouldn't you then have to like turn collision back on or something, or not?
No, can collide has nothing to do with triggering the touched event. But that's a good. That's a great question. So even if can collide is off, it'll still trigger being touched. And so new fireball dot touched connect. And here I can actually instead of so here I connected a function that was already defined. Okay. But let's say I don't have a function defined yet. I can just write a function in the line, but notice how I did not have to give it a name.
Yeah.
I did not have to define it. So so that's a cool thing. So now this function gets the other part that touched it. Okay. So anytime we have any touched event. Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Your microphone.
Oh, me 1 second. Sorry about that. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Alright, again. Alright, anyway, continue.
Alright, so whenever the fireball gets touched, we get the other part that touched. Because if two things touch, right, there's always the thing that got touched. So if I make this blue, so this gray one is the thing that gets touched, and this blue one is the other thing. Okay, And so we always have access to the first thing, but in order to get access to the other thing, we have to define it in here. Okay, if I did not define this other part with this touched event, then I would not have access to it. But I always have access to the first thing. And so what I want to do is, so let's say a fireball touches this dummy's arm here. Okay, so this dummy has a left lower arm. Okay.
Yeah.
To damage the dummy, I need to decrease the health property of the humanoid here. It's like 50. For example.
Okay.
So I can't damage this arm. Okay, I can damage the humanoid. But okay, I know that the parent of the left lower arm is the character, and the humanoid is a child of the character. So let me define the character first. So I'm gonna say local character is defined as other part dot parent, and then humanoid is going to be defined as, local. So yeah, every time I define something for the first time, I need the word local. So then I can say humanoid dot health going to be equal to humanoid dot health minus 50, and then this should be minus, and then I want to just destroy the fireball. Okay, I don't need the fireball anymore after it's done damage, so I can say new fireball colon destroy.
Yeah.
Okay, so now if let's make this dummy's health property of the humanoid go back to 100. Now if I press I'm not checking, so I just damaged myself. I'm not checking if the character is equal to this character.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm gonna call this actually enemy character. Okay, and then humanoid is equal to enemy character dot humanoid. Okay, and first I'm gonna say if enemy character does not equal character, then so the does not equal sign is a squiggly line equal sign. Give me a second. You see my screen, right?
Yep.
All right, so yeah, if the enemy character does not equal the character, this is the does not equal symbol, then we destroy the health and then destroy the fireball. And actually, let me reduce the damage so we can have more fun with it. I think 50 is too much. Notice how I did not just set it to 10, because then that would this would never decrease. This is just assigning it to 10. So now if I press F, doop, 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 doop.
What happens if you kill the dummy? What happens then?
So the dummy doesn't do anything, but when a character that's controlled by a player dies, okay, Roblox by default breaks.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then you'll respawn later. But the dummy is just there for testing, so he doesn't like break apart and stuff like that. So okay. All right. Actually, I think he does. It's just he's anchored. So I think if we unanchor everything, yeah, there we go.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you can experiment with this. You can maybe instead of a fireball, you can create a laser. Okay, you can create, or you can go into the toolbox. Like, so obviously these four shapes can only get you so far. But you can search up like part or VFX, and then so basically like what we're discussing right here is video effects, or like particle effects. So there's a lot more shapes we can get here that are pretty useful for making abilities. Okay, I've actually used some of these in my game, so this is some pretty cool stuff. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna save